Here's what I'm going to do, and here's what I'm going to ask everybody to do. I'm going to give this dev team a fresh start. I'm going to forget the past to the best of my ability, and I'm going to give them a fresh start to crack this. Hold on. New news on 6v6? Let me see this. Oh, let's go. Hey, new 6v6 blog, boys. Let's take a look. Okay, awesome. All right. Director's Take, continuing the 6v6 discussion. Welcome back to another Director's Take. Back in July, we opened the conversation around 6v6 and 5v5. Now we'd like to continue that conversation to share a few updates coming in Season 13 and 14. Previously, we talked about different format changes throughout Overwatch's history, why we switched to 5v5, and what the plan would be from here. Included in those steps, we said we'd be looking at running a series of tests to try out different core team composition formats in Overwatch 2. These format tests are all about understanding we can make the core game even stronger. Every day, millions of players jump into the core 5v5 format, and the last thing we want to do is negatively impact that experience. Okay. The exciting thing about these tests is the potential to introduce something that could appeal. Yeah. Okay, guys, what about all the players who logged on every single day to Overwatch 1? I guess you could say that they're learning their lesson with this by not, like, abandoning the game. Fair. But you could, you know, I get what their point is. I get what their point is. It's like, you know, there's a certain expectation of product, but I would say the queue times, especially with tank, not like queue times getting longer and people clearly not adapting or liking this new form of tank doesn't help, but we'll see. The exciting about these tests is the potential to introduce something that could appeal to another group of players, ones that might have felt uncertain about the move to 5v5 when Overwatch 2 launched, which was a lot of people. If you didn't read the previous 6v6 blog, check it out. But because now we're going to dive into the plans for 6v6 and the format test mentioned there. All right, so it looks like the 6v6 test won't be till Season 14, which happens to be when Marvel Rivals drops, which might just push a lot of players out anyway. We'll see. The team has been exploring our vision and development for these tests. We're happy to announce that we'll be running 2 different 66 tests in Season 14. The first, we're launching 1 week into the season. We'll look a little different than the standard 2-2-2 role queue from Overwatch. Interesting. Part of this series of tests is not only to judge players' appetite for larger team sizes, but also to explore different ways that we might implement a change without running into the same problems we had previously. With that, well, I mean, okay, like, what's interesting about that, and I do appreciate the transparency here, is like, the same game design problems that happened in 6v6 happen in 5v5 now. It's just like, again, sustain creep. Sustain creep. It's the same thing. Like, again, like, they've essentially made every tank have the problem that Double Shield had in Overwatch 1. With that in mind, our first test will be a variation of Open Queue, which we're internally referring to as Min 1 Max 3. Each team must have 6, each team of 6 must have at least one of each role. Okay, yeah, and no more than 3. So, okay, so you could run Goats comp, basically. You could. There are a few different combinations that you'll be able to try, but this opens up many different team comps that we haven't seen before in Overwatch 2. You'll also be able to switch roles on the fly during that match, as long as that switch doesn't break the Min 1 Max 3 limit. Interesting. Besides experimenting with a format that could be seen as the middle ground between role queue and open queue, this will always give us a look at how Overwatch 2 heroes, abilities, and updates work in a 6v6 environment before we expand to other type of tests. I mean, we already know how they work. They work better. They work better. The new Overwatch 2 heroes work better in 6v6, especially the tank heroes, than they did in 5v5. They just do. They don't have to do everything. They don't have to be Giga Sustain, and they have a gameplay loop that's way more engaging. The 6v6 code really has shown that, and years of the game has shown that too. So it's great to see that. So that's going to end up doing well for them. Okay. The second test will be mid-cycle Season 14. Will be the classic 2-2-2, but will incorporate some principles introduced in Overwatch CC, like less CC and hero reworks. The 6v6 tests will have their own card in unranked alongside other modes, and they will not take place in the other types of game modes or seasonal events or quick play hacked. We'll also be implementing a series of balance changes that will apply to the 2 test modes only. Okay, cool. The power and survivability of tanks will go down in these 6v6 formats. Thank God. Obviously, they're smart enough to do that. And we'll be taking a look at whether or not we need many of the passives that we had. No, remove them all! Remove every single passive except for the global regen. Remove. I actually am curious how Open Queue would work with the global regen passive. Remove every single role passive. They are horrible. They are bad. They suck. If you want to give a hero a passive, have it be something unique to them. I like that. Okay. Get them out of the game. Please. Please. Please, God. Okay. Upcoming game modes Season 13. We'll be hosting 2 5v5 format experiments in Season 13 that are aimed to test the flexibility within this format, similar to 6v6 tests. We're planning a quick play hack coming soon, which they're calling Limit 2. This will be 5v5 with the maximum number of each role limited to 2. This includes tanks, but they will be tuned to open queue balance, meaning they will have less health. You can freely, okay, are their abilities going to get nerfed? Because doing the health is not enough. You can freely switch heroes and roles as long as the new role doesn't already have 2 players. Okay. Like the 6v6 limits test, we're looking at how the game in its current state works so players have more freedom with team compositions without making it full open queue. That will be fun. It's actually really interesting that they're doing that. It's very good. For the Season 13 mid-cycle, we're planning a special game mode called Kingmaker, like Limit 2, but the maximum number of each role is limited to. However, the player who is alone in their role gets a bonus. We'll talk more about how this mode works in detail closer to launch, but like the Limit 2, it's a quick play mode. We're exploring more freedom in 5v5, enabling more times of compositions to succeed. Okay, cool. Okay. Look, I'll be real. The idea that the solo role should get some kind of bonus, it depends on what it is. Again, I think the game is more fun when every role is more relative to each other, and the idea of a super role is just fundamentally flawed in the game. In any game, really. It's hard to do that in a PvP game, whether it be a shooter, Dead by Daylight, doesn't matter, right? When players are relative enough to each other on opposing roles to where they can make plays consistently on each other, that's how you create the most player agency, and I think that's a good change. I think that having Kingmaker codename Kingmaker, whatever. This is just a variable that you shouldn't test here, in my opinion, though. Like, I get them wanting to do it, but they've already tried with pickable passives, and to their credit, thank God they didn't add it. Good job, Blizzard. Good job, actually. Got to give them credit on that. They could have added it, and they didn't. Thank God. So this is cool stuff that they're doing. I'm glad they're doing this stuff. We'll see. Quick Play Hack Limit 2 and Kingmaker will provide an excellent benchmark and framework for us going into 6v6 tests. We're looking forward to seeing what statistics we can gather as you dive into these modes alongside your feedback about which was one of our strongest data points. Cool. This is good. A world with 5v5 and 6v6. This is actually possible. I'm really curious what they'll say here. Because, again, I don't think that they have to hard commit to one format. It's okay if they change it. It's okay if they change it. I think that should be encouraged. I do. As long as they don't make super tanks and double shield. Like, that's fine. That's the problem. The problem that I have with this format, that many other people do too, is how they've handled tanks and supports in Overwatch 2 with power creep is just not fun. The game is more fun when everyone's relative to each other, regardless of format, right? So if the format forces them to gigabuff things, it's just not going to be fun. If the format forces them to make power scaling be more lopsided to where tanks are now, like, guys, it is so boring going up against an Orisa as a DPS right now. Or Rhine, for that matter. In Overwatch 1, a Rhine could kill a Reaper, and a Reaper could kill a Rhine. Now, that Reaper is not going to kill that Reinhardt, just at base, right? And that's just bad game design. It's unhealthy, right? It's just unhealthy. I don't mean that in like a flaming way. I mean that it's like it just doesn't work out, right? So, okay. As we mentioned in our previous piece, we'll be watching the reception results of these tests closely. Another sentiment of that piece is that I would like to reiterate here is the Overwatch team wants to make the game so you want to play. So what does that mean for the future based on these experiments? In the world where a surge of players join this mode and continuously play it, then we have a signal we would need to do more with it. I think that more depends on the level of excitement. Is there a world where both 5v5 and 6v6 exist permanently in Overwatch 2? If you'd asked me a few months ago, I would have said no. As we've discussed in Overwatch 2's future in light of making the game that our players want to play, we know that players can want more than one experience. And that would be something that we need to consider moving forward. Yeah, I'm glad they're considering that. Like, again, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at the same time. I don't want them to box themselves into one line of thinking. That was what was so frustrating about the 5v5, 6v6 debate. It seemed like the circle around Blizz at the time, including Blizz themselves, which it didn't seem like this is what happened. Blizz themselves weren't saying anything, and led to a lot of confusion and people being like, yo, why are we blowing this off? How? And then being told, like, it's never going to happen. There shouldn't be a conversation, which, I think people have walked back to give them credit. It just seemed like there was a lot of smoke and mirrors with it, and they were boxing themselves in and not even considering the option. But, even as somebody who prefers 6v6, like, I'm okay with playing some seasons of 5v5. I'm okay with them doing both. I think 6v6 is better, and that's why I don't think it should be gone forever. But there's absolutely a path for them to do both. And so I'm glad it doesn't necessarily have to be at the same time, but maybe they could do it at the same time. Who knows? Who knows, right? Who knows? I think it would be interesting for them to do, okay? The upcoming months are going to have a lot of excitement with Quick Play Hack Limit 2 and Kingmaker in Season 13, multiple 6v6 tests in Season 14, and maybe another special surprise just around the corner. This team couldn't be more stoked to share these updates with you, and we'll be diving in alongside you. The way that we take Overwatch next level by centering you at the heart what we create and the directions we take together. Your feedback and collaboration with our team will always be essential in the part of Overwatch's development. Stay tuned for more news and announcements in the weeks to come, and we'll have more information to share on the 6v6 tests in Season 14 and Quick Play Hacked events closer to launches. Let's make a great game. All right, listen. Here's what I'm going to do, guys, okay? From here on out, when they finally walk away from super tanks in 5v5, okay? Here's what I'm going to do, and here's what I'm going to ask everybody to do. I'm going to give this dev team a fresh start. I'm going to forget the past to the best of my ability, and I'm going to give them a fresh start to crack this. Because this is the new Team 4. They just, like, the new map team fixed up the maps. They're laying a foundation to build a healthy game. And they're being honest and communicating. This is all that we've asked for 6 years. And the main reason I've been so critical of them is because even right now, we're still living in a world and a game that's suffering from the bad decisions of the previous team for the last 6 years. This is the first time that we're really getting a hard look at Overwatch without the mistakes of the past in Overwatch 2.
I need healing.
I like what I'm hearing, but I've said that before. They need to follow through.
They do need to follow through. They do. They do. But this is the new team's chance to prove themselves to me. And because they're doing it, I'm willing to give them a fresh start. Because let's just be real, how 5v5 has been handled has been awful. It's gotten worse and worse. Like, honestly, season 9 was one of the worst. Like, I was right on the money about that. That season was fun because it was a dive meta, not because the changes were healthy. The only good thing that came from season 9 was the global regen passive. And then, to be honest, it's kind of been downhill from there. Tanks getting tankier, all this stuff. Like, that's the exact same problem that Overwatch 1 had, right? That's the exact same problem Overwatch 1 had. So, I think going back to 6v6 and experimenting with something new here, right? It is a clean slate, and I think they deserve chance to be judged on that. I think at this point, it's just when they're clearly trying new things that original Team 4 wouldn't try, putting out new stuff and updates, like, you have to acknowledge it. And I would say, from where we are now, 1 year ago, I would say that they deserve that chance. I do. With the new comp system, a lot of these things, I still think they have some work to do on this stuff. But they really genuinely have done a good job of digging themselves out of the grave. And I appreciate that. I think the bad sentiment around the game now can all be tied back to decisions made around Overwatch 2 as an idea. This is the first time they might be able to break the shackles of Overwatch 2 ruining everything. Overwatch 2 destroyed this IP. Destroyed it. They're not having to focus on the PvE too much. They're finally undoing the like, guys, let's be real here. Like, Team 4 under Kaplan and Goodman particularly, like, these decisions and these balance changes all came under them, and they never understood the game. They just didn't. They never understood it. They never fixed their problems, and they've got a chance to go into 6v6, make everybody more relative, no more super tanks, fix the AoE healers like Baptiste and Brig, and the game will feel great. Get the passives out of the game. Get all that shit out of the game. All this Overwatch 2 new game crap that just made heroes get blown way out of proportion. Like, guys, tanks have 4 passives that are unique. 4. Reduced knockback, headshot reduction. They got better armor. I mean, what else? Reduced ult charge. They regenerate more from the global passive. That's 5 passives that they got. It's ludicrous. On top of unique hero passives. What game are we playing? Imagine telling somebody in 2020 that this is all the stuff that they do. They'd be like, what the hell? We don't need to do all this. And it makes the devs' job even harder. So this is, like, I'm going to give them a fresh start. I'm going to give them a fresh start when they do this. I think they deserve a fair chance, and I'd encourage anybody at home to also give them that fair chance. Because listen, it's one thing to criticize them and be like, the devs for this game freaking suck, blah, blah, blah. But when they actually put in the effort, they clean up their maps, they are trying new formats, they're willing to walk this stuff back finally, you have to give them credit. You have to. You know what? You don't have to give them credit, but I do think you need to give them a chance. So I'm going to give them a chance on this 6v6 code. I'm going to give them a chance on these format changes. And let's see if they can make the best of it. I hope it works out for them. I do. Okay. Cool. Boys, remember, if you like my content and you want to continue to support me and speaking my mind and giving new ideas out there that are really unfiltered, which is kind of hard to find nowadays, I guess, be sure to help me out and support us on Patreon, where you get all kinds of like coaching assets and many other things. Be sure to check it out down in the description. It has everything you need. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to give a shout out to our patrons: Burger Billy, GP Hash, Justin Prince, Melvin, Nilo Heen, Z Cube, AJ, Christopher, Dev, Frokage, Masa, Priat, Sebastian, Tyler, Arietta. I'm not saying last names because I don't figured you guys would not want me to do that. Being Me is Tiring, Axiom, Christian, Dedicated, Halvard, Hera, Hungry Widow, ID, Jake again, Jake R, Jake M, Jordan, Levanoon, Mono, Naz, NBE, Nicholas, Rucate, did I say that right? I'm so sorry. Sid, Steven, that one pronoun, and Yeeta Dog. I appreciate you guys so much. Much love, and yeah, thank you all so much for your support.